Today on the Democracy and Justice Show with Shoaib Ahamed, we are tackling one of the most controversial law enforcement incidents in recent U.S. immigration history, the fatal shootings involving the Federal Immigration Agency in Minneapolis. In early January, an ICE agent shot and killed a local woman, Renée Good, during an enforcement operation. And just in 2 days ago, another Minneapolis resident, Alex Pretti, an ICU nurse, was fatally shot during a separate encounter involving ICE agents. These events have sparked national outrage, large protests, political backlash, debates over the use of the force by federal agencies far from the border, and questions about accountability, transparency, and civil liberties. With us today is an experienced immigration attorney with deep expertise in immigration enforcement, law, and civil rights issues, Mr. David Frenkel, founder of Frenkel, Hershkowitz Shafran LLP. We will talk about what happened legally in Minneapolis, what is standards, federal government agents' use of force, how this incident affect immigrant communities, and what legal and policy responses might emerge. Mr. David Frenkel, welcome to Democracy and Justice Show.
Thank you very much. My pleasure to be with you.
Mr. Frenkel, I have many questions to you, but let me just play one video of the recent killing for my viewers to have some context for it.
What the fuck is wrong with you? The fuck, people? The fuck is wrong with you? Honestly. Oh my God!
So, Mr. Frankel, what we watched in the videos and last couple of days in the news is the force of federal agents when they go for immigration raid or checking IDs. Now, we know, and in the video it's clear that this ICU nurse, Alex Pretti, did not pose any threat to the immigration agents. But the border chief was describing, along with the secretary of USCIS, was describing the protester, the bystander, who they call themselves as a legal observer, as a threat to the agent, as a lawyer. How do you see this thing? Help my viewers understand whether you feel this protester, legal observers, are threat in a scale to be shot.
Well, from a perspective other than law enforcement, let's put it this way. If you or I had killed someone in a similar fashion under those circumstances, we would be indicted for murder. In order to shoot someone in self-defense, you have to demonstrate that you're in fear of your physical harm. That doesn't seem to be apparent, especially in the situation where he's lying on the ground surrounded by 5 or 6 agents. And from the reports that I read, he had not drawn his weapon. It was on his weapon was not even known to the agents until after they began searching him and manhandling him. Right. Unfortunately, in the climate we have now, despite the fact that it seems to be clearly excessive force, in all probability, in my opinion, these agents are not going to be punished in any way, not be reprimanded. That's just the way it is today. It's an unfortunate reality, but we have to accept it. That's what's happening.
Right, right. Now, the question is, what federal statutes or policies govern U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement, ICE, and other DHS agents when they're operating in a domestic city like Minneapolis, New York City, New Jersey?
Well, all law enforcement has general guidelines that they utilize when confronting people in an arrest or certainly before shooting them. And those would be quite similar or parallel to the restrictions and guidelines that New York City police have. I'm quite certain that if a New York City police officer discharged his weapon in such a fashion and killed someone, he would be immediately suspended from his job. There'd be a review, there'd be a trial, and there would be certainly there would be severe repercussions. You're not going to see that now. I'm embarrassed to say that it's not going to happen, because everything is structured at this point so that they can continue to just violate the laws left and right. And it's going to take a really strong push from the civilian population and from politicians throughout the United States for this to be changed. I think it is going to happen in the future. I think we are going to have some severe modifications that we need in terms of enforcement, but it's quite possible it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Right. You mentioned about the protests and the pressure from the people. We have been seeing the protests nationwide, and I'm sure it's going to go even larger and bigger when the weather becomes a little friendly. Now, as an immigration attorney, my question is, what are the legal differences between the federal internal investigation that this government is now pursuing of an agent's use of the force versus the independent criminal investigations at the state level?
Well, I'm certain that the guidelines they have for investigating incidents of this kind are just as difficult and stringent as those of any city police department would be, or if the FBI would be. But you have to enforce them in order for them to have any effect. And I don't see any willpower on the part of USCIS or the federal government to discharge their duties and obligations to the civilian population by enforcing our requirements when it comes to arresting someone, and certainly when it comes to taking someone by force and killing them. Mm-hmm. They have the power to do it. The laws are there, but you have to be willing to enforce it. I'll give you a different perspective on it, perhaps. You're probably too young to remember this, and I'm not even sure if you were in the United States at that time, but when we had the war in Vietnam, this is going back a half a century, there were massive protests in the country, even much larger than what you can imagine we're having now in the country. It's hard for you to visualize it, but millions of people were opposed to the war, and there were huge demonstrations, and things became very difficult for people who were protesters, similar to today. And then you had the shooting at a college campus where they killed 4 students at Kent State. And that was like a catharsis in a way. All of a sudden, people realized, we're going overboard. And I think you're seeing that among the population of the United States now, even though people here want to have restrictions on immigration, they want to have controls, they want to have protection at the borders. They right now, from what I've read, the statistics show that the majority of the people don't agree with the tactics that are being used. And it's unfortunately going to take the death of people or the violation of people's civil rights before more people wake up and say, and demand of their politicians, you have to put a stop to this. So as I said, I think it's going to get worse, but then it is going to get better.
Right. For your knowledge, I was not even born during the Vietnam War.
Okay.
So that's not a question. Thank you so much. I do have one question to you. You mentioned about it probably get much worse before it can get better. And it takes people awakening, coming out and protest, even though there might not be. Most American-born citizen might not think that they're in the danger, but you never know how far this administration or any authoritarian administration can reach to violate your rights. In terms of precedents, we are seeing that 2 U.S. soil-born American citizens were killed in Minneapolis in very short notice, within the couple of weeks. In terms of the precedents, do we have, other than these 2, any other past incident where ICE killed American citizens?
No, not like this. No. I mean, and we see other incidents with this administration where there are no precedents, where they intercept the boats in the Caribbean where they purportedly carrying drugs and killing those people. You would never see the government sanction an assassination like that unless there were some kind of report issued and a fact-finding and an approval by a board of people who had the consensus to say, yes, we can take this activity. So we see it's not just with immigration, it's literally across the board that many violations of civil rights are taking place. And it's going to reach a boiling point where people are going to say, we've had enough. I think what caused this perhaps is that they reached a boiling point under Biden where the borders were wide open and hundreds of thousands of people were coming in illegally. And that was ridiculous. I mean, every government has the right to have sovereign borders, and every government has the right to make its own immigration laws. The government abandoned its common sense during Biden when it came to the control of the borders. And now the people are reacting to that. They're saying, we had enough of that. And that's why you're getting an overreaction, so to speak, why you're able to get away with so many travesties violating our constitutional rights, because it's a backlash against the overabundance of border crossings and the people just coming in without any restraints.
Yeah, you were right. And one of our viewers actually commented very similar fashion that who violated the law that allowed 12 million illegals in the country anyway. So I do see that the sentiment some people may have for the open border policy and now this overreaction. But the thing is that American people are getting killed. American people citizens are getting violated during these processes. Let me focus on, you mentioned about President Biden, who was a Democratic president. Let me focus on Barack Obama's deportation customs. During Barack Obama, millions of people were deported. So if you didn't hear that American citizens or non-citizens were killed by ICE then, what was the process? What is the difference now? You have over 45 years of experience as an immigration attorney. What difference you see then and now?
Because they've hired a new force within ICE to arrest, detain, and deport aliens. And they're giving them basically carte blanche. They are allowed to go into places and make illegal arrests. They enter without a warrant. They arrest people without warrants. They deprive them of their constitutional rights of having legal counsel. There are many deprivations. And this is all a reaction. They're getting away with it because there's no one in the government who's telling them to stop. The politicians are afraid to exert pressure because they don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to be voted out of office. They don't want to anger the current administration. So you have no one who has any significant power making any protests except people in Minneapolis, for example. And that's going to probably spread to other cities, because before, if they were killing illegal aliens, people were justifying it, say, oh, that illegal alien was a criminal. So if he got it, he probably deserved it. Even though that's a wrong approach, it's easy to distinguish between American citizens and aliens. Now, when they're killing American citizens, everyone feels that. Everyone understands something is wrong. You should not be shooting American citizens in the streets just for protesting. People are allowed to protest.
Right. That's their First Amendment right. You're violating their constitutional right.
Right. And if you look at the videos, and I of course, I didn't see the actual incidents, but if you look at the videos, it really doesn't appear as though the agents were in any imminent danger. Certainly not enough to kill someone.
Right. Regardless of the immigration status, nobody deserved to be shot on the day board light in the street. This is America. It's hard to believe this is America, who lectures so much internationally on human rights, and this is your situation.
Yes, it's without precedent. And if you had asked me 2 or 3 years ago, is this ever going to happen in America, or is it possible? I would have said, there's no way it could happen. That's what I would have said 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm shocked every day. I read the paper and I see what goes on. I can't believe what's going on. Again, I think that ultimately things will reverse. The history is like a dialectic. Things go up, things go down. And we had a very down period with Biden, and it's even more down now with Trump in terms of immigration, but it will revert to a more normal level, I believe.
Yeah, thanks for the hope. You mentioned in your responses deprivation of the due processes, right? This ICE agent, they are not following the rules. I was under the impression that in order to show up in somebody's doorstep, try to enter somebody's doorstep, the ICE agent or any law enforcement agency would need a signed warrant from a judge. Is not the case anymore?
It is the case, but they're violating it. It was also the law that you couldn't just approach someone on the street and say, let me see your identification. If your man is just standing on the street, you cannot compel him to tell an agent or anyone who he is or show any identification. There are situations where that is required, like if you're a certain distance from the border, there are certain leniencies allowed. But in general, Americans have the right to walk around without restriction, without being questioned, without being required to show identification. And it's interesting because the same people who are now being so forceful on immigration were the same people who always would tell you, you can't stop me from carrying a gun, you can't stop me from walking, you can't stop me from saying whatever I want to say. Now they're on the other side of the fence, and they're taking it out on people who have the least power in the United States, and that is illegal immigrants.
Right. The hypocrisy is right there, right? You can carry a gun. Yeah,
think about it like this. If you compare the demonstrations you're seeing today with the demonstrations January 6th, when people attacked the Capitol of the United States, and those people were all released, they were all pardoned, how do you justify the two actions? I mean, people have a right to protest, but they have the right to you have no right to kill them just for protesting.
Right. I can justify it. I don't know who justifies it or who tries to justify these two different situations. Now, if the ICE agent or the government itself does not follow the due process, and I would think the due process are supported by the law, guided and guarded by the law, can Americans, attorneys, ordinary citizens sue the government or the agency for violating all these laws?
Well, they have been sued many times in the past. Many of those lawsuits are pending. The problem is that everybody is afraid. Hard to imagine, but everyone's afraid. So you even have judges that are ruling in favor of immigration because they're afraid of their jobs. Immigration judges have been dismissed because they've been found to be too lenient, let us say, with immigration cases. So right now, the laws are on the book, but they're not being enforced. And again, I think that's going to change because just as Biden was too lax and caused a reaction, now they're being too strict and they're also going to cause a reaction.
Right. It's interesting. So if everybody is intimidated, even the judges, what is the solution then? Like you are talking that it's going to get normal. Like how would it get normal? Is it the public pressure, protest,
yes,
elections, and unseating the lawmakers that will start the normalization?
Yes, you have certain lawmakers who have courage and they're speaking up. And I think as some lawmakers speak up, more will join them. And certainly as they get support from their constituents, you're going to find more people speaking up. So, for example, in New York, you don't find the politicians are very afraid because the general consensus in the New York metropolitan area is certainly anti all these measures that ICE is enforcing. It's going to take time, but I think the American Constitution is very strong. The government, the country is strong. It has a good set of guidelines. We have a history of protecting people, and that's going to come back again and be able to protect people who really need help. It takes time. People have to wake up, and they're waking up. They're waking up to something is wrong. This is not the way to do it. We have a lot of illegal aliens here. Perhaps they should be deported. Perhaps they shouldn't, but this is not the way to do it.
Right. Let's talk about some rights if you are encountered by ICE agent. Let's say somebody is a citizen, naturalized citizen, not an American-born citizen, naturalized citizen. ICE agent shows up because of your skin color, because of your accent, because of anything they would suspect. Do they have to show them ID, or they can just say to get out from their way?
Okay, so that there is as I said, if you're within a certain distance of the border, and if an ICE agent or US CIS agent confronts you, they have the right to ask you for your identification. Typically, when you're not in that place, in that close to the border, they don't. However, if you're asking me whether you should comply, I would say comply. In this day and age, I would say comply. I mean, I'm a naturalized citizen myself. If an ICE agent came over to me and asked me for proof, I would be outraged. And I would be tempted to open my big mouth, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't, because you have to look at the repercussions. I can take care of myself legally. I'm a lawyer. But what if you're not? What if you're just an average person doing a job and you get confronted with ICE? Can you afford to have a lawsuit? Can you afford to go to jail? Can you afford to be beaten up? No. So as much as it's outrageous and a violation of our normal civil liberties, if they come over to you and say, show me your identification, I would tell everyone, do it. At this point, do it, because you're not going to win the argument.
Right. Now, in terms of identification, somebody shows their state ID. What ICE agent will understand from seeing the state ID, how they will determine whether this person is legally, illegally, citizen, not citizen, permanent resident? How they determine it?
Well, it's pretty simple now. You have to remember that immigration has a lot of tools available to them they never had before. Besides the fact they have their computer base, which contains the name of everybody who is an alien, basically, especially those who have been in any kind of proceedings, they also have facial recognition. So you can claim to be whoever you are. If they want to find out who you are, they're going to find out. And there was a time when if you told an USCIS agent or ICE agent, here's my driver's license, here's my letter showing I'm supposed to be in immigration court next week so you know who I am, they no longer care. If you aren't a citizen or a green card holder, there's a very good chance they will take you to their offices and process you and maybe even detain you. Even though you're married to a U.S. citizen and have your case pending, even though you have a case for asylum pending, doesn't really matter. They don't care anymore, and they're getting away with it. And they're getting away with it big time. And unless the politicians step in, it's going to continue, because they have no restraints at this point. Really, no restraints.
Right. You mentioned about application being pending, and a lot of immigrants who are here, they have some sort of application pending, asylum, I-485, I-130. They are pending because USCIS is super slow. We know it. Years after years, we have to wait to get anything being processed. And you are now saying that ICE has the practice, even you have an active application, just to take you, detain you, and process you in their facilities. How does that work?
Well, how does it work? It works very poorly. I can tell you what happened in San Diego a month ago. People who were married to U.S. citizens who showed up at the office with their spouses or with their children in some cases for interviews to get a green card through adjustment of status were being arrested because they were out of status. Even though their cases were pending, they were arrested. Now, many of them subsequently got released from jail through habeas corpus and other ways of paying a bond, but they were in jail, many of them, for 1 or 2 weeks. It never happened before that if a U.S. citizen came in with their illegal spouse, if the spouse had no criminal history, there was no way they were going to ever arrest them and detain them. It didn't happen. Right. Now they're doing it. And if you get picked up by an ICE agent and you demonstrate that you have a court case pending, they would say, okay, just show up to court and they would let you go. Now they don't do that. You have a case pending? Yeah, okay, fine. We're taking you in. And then they try to deport you. It's a new reality. It's a new set of rules. It's something I've never experienced before. The immigration attorneys.
You didn't experience in your last 45 years of being
Never saw anything like this in my life. Never saw it. Never imagined it could happen.
So just to be clear, you are a citizen, you are a naturalized citizen, you are a green card holder, you have an application pending, or you don't have any application pending, you are right now out of status. If you are approached by an ICE agent or USCIS agent, you do comply, you do show your ID, and you just expect whatever happens next. Is it correct?
Yes, because they're probably going to detain you. Why? Because they have a program. They want to deport, I think it's 3,000 people a day, some number like that. So they don't really care that you have a case pending. They don't care that you're applying for asylum. They want to get you out of the country. You're considered an illegal alien, and they're going to do everything they can to get you out of the country. And the way that the laws are now being interpreted by the court system and by the immigration service is that you don't have the same rights you once had. And clients ask me, am I in danger if I go for this interview? Am I in danger if I go for a renewal of my work permit or my fingerprints? And I have to tell them, yes, you are in danger. I'm embarrassed to say they're in danger. Will they be arrested? We never know. It's a case-by-case basis, but it's not like it was half a year ago or a year ago. Not at all.
Does this discourage?
What?
Now that you can get arrested in an interview or just to follow the legal process that you are supposed to, do you think it will discourage immigrants to go for any legal process or application process anymore? Because if they go, they must show up in a courthouse where immigration agents are waiting for them. On the other
Many
hand,
of
if they
them,
never
many of them have been.
apply, it just the luck that they will be approached by an officer, which by statistically the percentage will be very low. So why would I even start my immigration process anymore?
A lot of people are refraining from filing applications now because of their fear.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, they would make applications because they have the ability to become legal after going through the whole process. Now they're so afraid that if they'll give all the information to the Immigration Service, they're either going to be picked up or they're going to be called in for an interview and then arrested. And I cannot guarantee anybody anymore, go for the interview, you're going to be safe. You can't say that. I mean, in certain cases we feel more confident than others, but it's a different world.
Yeah. We are talking about those who have an application pending. Let's talk about those who have a permanent residency or green card. Do you suggest them to carry their green card all the time?
Well, first of all, you're required to carry your green card all the time. You're required to.
The physical card or just a picture in your phone?
Well, a picture is probably good enough. But in this day and age, I would carry the card. I would carry
all
the
time
card
with you whenever you are
because
outside.
you don't want to give them any opportunity, any excuse to take you downtown, detain you for a day. Well, they may release you at the end of the day, but you lost the day, and you're not going to get compensated for it. They're going to say sorry, so big deal. If you're smart and you have a green card, carry it with you. Mm-hmm. Carry it with you.
And for the citizens, do you also suggest them to carry their passport all the time?
No, I think citizens are in a different category than aliens. You're not really required to carry anything if you're a citizen. Now they were trying to impose that. It's interesting. They were trying to impose that years ago, and the same people who are now are trying to enforce ICE regulations were the people who are opposed to the idea of an American citizen being compelled to carry proof of citizenship. But if you are a naturalized citizen and you are a person of color or you have an accent, you should really be prepared to have something with you to convince immigration that you are legal, maybe just your naturalization number, but something so that you don't have to take a trip downtown and be interrogated.
Right.
I mean, I would do it. I would urge people to carry something with you to avoid that unnecessary trip to the detention center.
Right. Let me ask you, how far this administration can go in terms of naturalized citizen? Do you think, I heard President Trump was actually talking about this a couple of days ago in a rally that will denaturalize naturalized citizen and deport them, somewhat that fashion. Under the current immigration law, how far this administration can go? Do you think naturalized citizen can be denaturalized by this administration for any reason?
Absolutely, and it's the contrast to prior attempts to do that is stark. I've been doing immigration law for 50 years, and I remember that the only people you ever found being denaturalized were Nazi war criminals, and those cases took 30 years usually to get, or 40 years to get them out of the country. Now you're seeing people getting denaturalized in a matter of weeks and being deported. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I think the biggest target now, when people are applying for naturalization, they have to be very cautious and discuss it with their attorneys and see if there's anything in their background that could trigger a revocation of their green card, because people got away with things. Everybody has some kind of blemish in their history, that we're all humans. So immigration overlooked many of them or didn't know about them. Now they're not overlooking anything, and they're finding out everything. So secrets you thought were buried are no longer buried. So you have to be very cautious if you apply for naturalization. On the other hand, if you're already a naturalized citizen, there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to sit back and hope they don't approach you. It's a monumental task for the government to try to go through all their records and denaturalize people. So unless they see something very, very blatant, they're never going to be able to figure out that this person may be subject to denaturalization. I think the biggest risk would be for someone who claims never to have been arrested before naturalization. They discover he was arrested for a crime that may have made him removable. Those people would be at risk at this point. The only other category would be people who lied about their asylum applications or lied about their marital status before they married a citizen. The average person who's naturalized is not going to really have any danger.
Right, right. Um, I mean, as you rightly mentioned, that something is in the law and something is in the practice, right? Before that was overlooked and it was okay. Now it is not okay anymore, and they find a tiny little thing. Based on that, they can go into deporting a person, right?
Right.
Okay.
Many times in the past, if they would find something, the government would decline. They would decline to prosecute because it used to be a very difficult task for the government to denaturalize a U.S. citizen. And if it wasn't a big deal, the government would just say, it's just not worth it to pursue this case. Now they're pursuing them all because it's much easier for them to actually denaturalize someone and deport them.
How is it easy now? Because before, if I know correctly, it was through a Supreme Court or High Court, or it's not in the immigration court anymore to denaturalize and deport a person.
No, it isn't. But then they claim fraud. They try to take away their green card, which would take away their naturalization. It's not a simple process for the government to do, but it's far easier than it was, and it's far quicker. And if they can find some blemish in your application for your green card, which you obtained before naturalization, then they can detain you. And once you're detained, it's very difficult to stand up for your rights. It's very difficult to have an attorney represent you adequately because they ship you off. If you're living in New York, they can ship you off to Louisiana or Oklahoma or Texas. Very difficult to protect yourself and defend yourself.
Is that what happened to Mahmoud Khalil's case? A lot of my viewers asked me to ask you about Mahmoud Khalil's case. He was a green card holder, permanent resident, married to a U.S. citizen, father to a U.S. Citizen, and all he did is protesting in Columbia University campuses.
I was very shocked by the result of that case. Very shocked. Basically, it was a matter of he had an opinion that the government didn't agree with. Now they're claiming it's anti-U.S., anti-Semitism, anti-this, whatever it is. It doesn't justify being labeled as a terrorist and deporting you. There's no way to justify it. This could not have happened years ago. Could not have happened. Would not have happened.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, do you think the naturalized citizen, they should be fearful and they should not be speaking their mind? They should be just hide themselves and try to be.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think just the contrary. If you're a naturalized citizen or any citizen, you should be able to speak your mind. I think you maybe have to be a little bit more judicious about what you say. So, for example, if you're going to say, well, I support Muslim Brotherhood, I support Hamas. So these are organizations which are labeled as terrorist organizations. And the way the government is parlaying this into a crime is they're saying, okay, you're supporting them, therefore you could be considered a terrorist, et cetera, et cetera. It's nonsense, but this is the position they're taking. And face it, if you're the average person, you don't have the money or the funds to defend yourself. So if you get charged with these crimes, you're going to end up, your life is going to be ruined trying to exonerate yourself. So whatever you're thinking, be a little bit cautious before you put it in print or on the internet. Be cautious. Even though you shouldn't have to be, you should be today because of the way it is.
Right. We are almost at the end of our program today. I do have two more questions. You mentioned about Nazi Germany. If I remember correctly, you came from Germany, or your family, you came as a
refugee. I came as a refugee.
As a refugee, young kid in the United States. If I'm not incorrect, then your family was impacted by Nazi Germany, right? Your family members.
Yeah, they were all in concentration camps before they came here.
They were in the concentration camps, including you or your immediate family?
No, my parents. I was born after the war.
All right. Your parents. Now, seeing this happening in USA, where federal agents can go after skin color or religion or accent, how similar this is to that time in the Germany? Or do you fear something similar to Nazi Germany can happen to people of color, minority community, people of accent here?
I fear for it only because of my own family history. So I think it happened in Germany, which was a very cultured, advanced country. Nevertheless, I can't imagine it happening in America because Americans, by their nature, are good-hearted people. And Americans have a good sense of right and wrong. There are people who are always extremists. There are people who have extreme ideas, and they cause problems once in a while. But I have a great amount of strength about the country. I have a great amount of belief in the goodness of the country. I think it's going to turn around and get better. Is it frightening? Yes, because we see the deprivation of constitutional rights. But again, you weren't born yet, but you had similar things happening in the 1970s. You had protests, 60s and 70s, with civil rights movements, things like that. And many civil rights were violated then. You had the case of Martin Luther King. We found out subsequently that he was always, the government always spied on him and listened to his conversations and things of that nature. So it's happened. This is not the first time it's happening. Right. We feel it intensely because we're in the middle of it, but it happened very intensely 50 years ago and 30 years ago. It happens. And we'll, because it's a strong country and it has a good set of rules and people who are straightforward, it'll get better. But it's going to be a rough road until we get there.
Right. My last question to you. We know that United States, the law enforcement has so many different layers. We have local police, we have state police, we have FBI, we have CIA, and in between other many agencies. Why do we need ICE to find out criminals? If there are criminals in the community, all these other agencies, what are they doing there? Do you see? Now, my question is, do we need ICE?
You need ICE because there are a lot of people here who shouldn't be here. There are a lot of people who are bad people who came in across the border or even came in through the legally, but are criminals. And someone has to take care of that problem. You don't want to have the country overrun with people who are violent criminals. Unfortunately, the way the government has presented it to the general public is that all the people who came across the border, all the aliens are criminals. It's nonsense. We have plenty of our own domestic criminals, and no one is advocating that all of them be locked up summarily. That isn't reality. But in order for the government to hire this extrajudicious police force and to do things they're not supposed to do, they create an aura of suspicion about aliens. And this was the justification they utilized to create an ICE force. Simple as that. They convinced the politicians, we're doing this to protect the public. And to a degree, they are protecting the public. You know, we can't have a country where anyone can come into the country, cross the border anytime they want. On the other hand, they've gone too far.
So the Border Patrol, this is different from ICE, right? So Border Patrol Agency, if they're apprehending people who are coming without any proper documentation, and then we have the local polices, state polices, FBI, and CIA to arrest people who did something wrong within the country. What role ICE should have? To give you some context, ICE was created post 9/11. So what happened before 9/11? We are not safe?
We were as safe as we could be. But why do you have ICE? I'll tell you why. Because if you go to the local police and say, there's an illegal alien living around the corner, I want you to arrest him, your local police officer is going to say, it's not my business. If they didn't commit a crime, I don't care if they're illegal. So that's why, but there are people that you have to get rid of. But who's going to do it? Someone's going to have to do it. Not to the extent they're doing it now, obviously, but that was the rationale for it. That was the excuse for it. And that allowed the government to create this huge police force of ICE officers, which is causing all the problems today.
Right.
No restraints.
Yeah. In just within 30 seconds, do you have any advice for immigrant communities who are watching this show and will be watching in the future?
Yes, I will tell you that it looks very bleak now. It looks very dangerous and very frightening. I can tell you that the most conservative president we had in the last 50 or 60 years was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was the only president that passed an amnesty law that gave millions of people amnesty.
Right.
So we see he was a reaction. He wanted to solve the immigration problem. And I think President Trump will also figure out a solution to solve this problem. I think at a certain point, he's going to say, we've deported enough people. Let's straighten this out. Let's get things back to normal, because it can't go on like this. It'll tear the country apart. So as I said, it's going to get worse, but it is going to get better ultimately. You have to just be safe and be careful until then, and hopefully you'll be around while we get it done.
With that note, thank you so much, Mr.
My
David
pleasure.
Frenkel, for your kind time in our show.
Thank you.